Inside the Magic, show number 443 for September 30th, 2013. It is Monday, September 30th, 2013. This is show 443 of Inside the Magic, and as always, I am your host, Ricky Briganti. Got a mixture of fun this week, from a little more Halloween as that season continues to roll on throughout the theme parks, but also back over to Epcot for some very special Food and Wine Festival-related fun and plenty of news and all that good stuff. Before we jump into all of it, I invite you to visit our website over at InsideTheMagic.net. There you will find all of our podcasts, videos, photos, news, articles, and a whole lot more. And if you ever have any news, tips, questions, comments, anything else you want to send in, you can do so by writing to me at ricky@InsideTheMagic.net, or you can call and leave a message at 407-494-4ITM. That's 4486. And now, let's get on with the show. This week's episode of Inside the Magic is brought to you by Magical Travel. You can save up to 30% when you stay at select Disney resorts when you visit Walt Disney World from November 10th through December 23rd. That offer expires November 3rd, so you're going to want to call Magical Travel right away for the most information and the best availability. Call them at 866-207-8387 or visit them online at magicaltravel.com to receive a free price quote, and be sure to mention Inside the Magic to receive your free Disney gift card for qualifying bookings when you book your Disney vacation with Magical Travel. And of course, thanks very much to all contributors to Inside the Magic, whether you are simply clicking through any of the ads or the affiliate links over on the website. That certainly helps, or donations can be made through there as well. It all supports everything that I do related to this show and the site and all of that good stuff. So thanks for all of it. And now, let's get started with the trip around the world. Well, we've got plenty of non-Halloween news to cover here, but you know what? I figured I'd front-load the show, jump right into a little bit of Halloween fun, so let's turn down that happy music. Go for something a little creepier. I'll actually be talking a little bit more about a specific Halloween event that I had a chance to experience just a few days ago. Big theme park event that premiered just recently, later in the show. But first, I want to run through real quick some recent events that I've had a chance to report on. Not all of it me personally, but on the website I've enlisted the aid of many others to help report on a few Halloween events around the country, not just Disney events, not just theme park events at that, but all kinds of events. One of which was one that I mentioned last week on the show, and I figured I'd just throw this one out there here at the top of the show. This one's definitely not for everybody, but Shocktoberfest, the Scream Park, as they like to call themselves, in Pennsylvania, as I mentioned on last week's show, was going to have an opportunity for people to experience one of their haunted houses completely naked. If you're this kind of person to want to do that, it would add a little extra fun, a little extra thrill. Unfortunately, the city apparently was not so happy with the idea. They decided that they weren't allowed to do it. So without wanting to risk having a battle with the city, they decided to nix that idea, and so their Naked and Scared challenge, as they called it, was not quite so naked, but instead it became an almost naked and scared challenge in which everybody had to wear, a little bit of clothing at least. Well, I still couldn't pass up the opportunity to cover this event, so to speak. So I sent some folks over to it to capture the experience. So if you want to see what that is like, tens of thousands have already viewed the video that we produced in less than 12 hours, which is pretty good. Head over to InsideTheMagic.net or check out our YouTube channel to see even more of that. Definitely some wacky, crazy Halloween fun to be had there. The video, I should add, is completely work safe and all of that. It's sufficiently blurred as to just simply be fun. Also, another event that I haven't been to yet, though I plan to pretty soon this season, but on opening night just a few days ago, I sent a reporter out in California to cover the opening night of Knott's Scary Farm, the Halloween haunt this year that brings new additions at that popular long-time theme park event, including the return of Elvira, the actual real Elvira, to her own cinema seance, as it's called. Another new feature of that haunted attraction this year, or rather several of their haunted houses, is the addition of something called the Skeleton Key that allows those who purchase that purchase that option to access different parts of those haunted houses that others would not normally be able to see, which is kind of an interesting idea. You can head over to our website to get a full report on that experience as well. Meanwhile, actually back in the state of Pennsylvania, over at Eastern State Penitentiary, was Terror Behind the Walls. They've started up their haunted attractions for the year, and I sent somebody to opening weekend to cover that as well. This year, they're adding a bit of interactivity also, with a unique opportunity to basically, when you say, yes, I want to take part in the interactive portion, they'll put a red glowing necklace around your neck, put a red X on your cheek, and from there it basically is giving the actors permission to grab you or put you in a chair and do crazy Halloween things to you. Nothing inappropriate, of course, but definitely all in the name of extra extreme fun. So you can read all about that over on our website as well. Now, meanwhile, of course, we've talked about Halloween Horror Nights, and I may have actually mentioned this last week. I can't remember, but of course, I obviously talked about Orlando's Halloween Horror Nights extensively on last week's show, but I don't think I mentioned too much about Halloween Horror Nights in Hollywood. Now, I haven't had a chance to experience that quite yet, but I did send Jeremiah and Josh Dawes over there for their very first time at Halloween Horror Nights. They've always been too scared to go. This time, both I and The Walking Dead convinced them to check it out, so they've written an article and sent over some video and photos, and we put all that up over on the website for their experiences as a first-timer to Halloween Horror Nights. Pretty amusing to read, actually, because I don't really get scared at these things too much, but, first time you go is always the most interesting, so you should definitely head over and read that for our continuing Halloween coverage. One more note about Halloween Horror Nights out here in Orlando. Universal Orlando, of course, the one out there is at Universal Studios Hollywood. Here at Universal Orlando, Legendary Truth has become in full swing. This is the interactive element of Halloween Horror Nights out here, and just a few days ago was the first true, at least it was supposed to be the first true interactive in-park experience. However, Legendary Truth had posted online an encrypted message that had to be solved in order to take part in the in-park experience. Well, nobody solved it in time. There were many, many people trying, and a lot of people gathered at the appropriate time in the park after that had been figured out, but since the message was not decoded quite yet, and the instructions weren't quite followed, that didn't happen. But surely it is just getting started. Everything has been figured out so far by the collective, as they like to call everybody who is taking part, and it'll be really fun to see where that experience goes in the coming weeks. So Universal's really putting a lot into adding that extra level of experience to those who want to frequent the Halloween Horror Nights event. Continuing a little bit with Halloween, I actually want to share a couple of emails here that I found interesting. Dave from Maryland wrote in and said, my family of 5, kids ages 3, 6, and 7, are visiting semi-annually, as we normally do, using our Vacation Club membership, and will be at Walt Disney World later in October. My question: my kids are really interested in dressing up for Halloween, but we really don't have the extra money this trip to spend on Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party. We've done it as a family previously, and honestly, I was underwhelmed for the price, though the experience was certainly fun, and limited attendance reminded me of the e-ticket nights way back when. This trip, however, we just prefer not to attend, given the extra $250 or so it would cost us. Are there any other local events that we could attend where the kids could dress up and even get candy? Does Downtown Disney or any other local attractions host events that won't cost us a fortune? Dave, it's a really great question because, of course, I talk extensively about Halloween Horror Nights and that sort of thing, and those are not intended for kids, though kids are allowed to be brought in for any parents who think their kids are ready. But that costs extra as well, and that's certainly not the trick-or-treating experience. And Not So Scary, as you said, is, it is what it is. It's fun, especially the first time, but, you were underwhelmed, and I will say that you were definitely not the only one to be underwhelmed by Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party. There certainly is more that Disney could be doing with that experience. Unfortunately, Disney doesn't really offer a whole lot more in the ways of Halloween. They used to have free trick-or-treating at Downtown Disney. They stopped that a couple of years ago. The first thing that comes to mind for me would be Old Town, over on 192 in the Kissimmee area, south of Walt Disney World, just south of Walt Disney World. Beginning, I think, October 11th is when they're starting up their annual Halloween. Very family-friendly, fun. There's a little bit of spookiness to it. They're actually going to be opening up a brand new year-round haunted house there very soon that I'm looking forward to seeing. But that aside, I would have to recommend going there as the first thing that pops to mind here. I think your kids would have fun, and then you can hit all the little sort of Old Town 192 area tourist stops if you wanted to do all of that. But as far as Halloween goes, you could do that. You could drive around the city of Celebration a little bit, see all the Halloween decorations that folks put out on their houses. People go really all out in that area. So there's a couple of suggestions for local activities that aren't going to cost you anything at all. On the topic of Halloween as well, Jose from Arizona writes in and says, I've always wanted to know why Disney never makes any traditional haunted houses like Universal does every year for the Halloween season. It gets kind of boring seeing the same presentation from Disney every Halloween with very little change or new stuff added. Does Disney think the haunted houses may be too scary for kids, even though it's the 21st century? And I'm sure most kids have seen scarier stuff on the internet and on TV. I would just love to see what Disney would do in the haunted house department, especially considering the properties they own. I would literally give my left leg for Marvel Zombies or a Star Wars-themed haunted house. Jose, very interesting ideas there. I highly doubt they'll use Marvel or Star Wars for anything like that, but if you look overseas, particularly in Hong Kong and in Tokyo, you will see a much different version of Halloween that Disney does put on. There are actually like a Main Street haunted house and spookier offerings throughout, and many, many fans of this type of entertainment have been calling for years for Disney to do something like that. I do not know the answer other than to assume, just simply based on the feedback that I personally am getting from covering so much Halloween on the show and on the website and on YouTube and all of that, I'm getting a lot of feedback, certainly from those who love it like I do, but also from the other half of people who are more into, let's say, Christmas, or into the 100% family-friendly, perfect, happy all the time sort of thing, none of this spooky stuff. And there's enough of those, I don't know, soccer moms or whoever they are, that just feel that none of that is appropriate for anybody of any age, or especially not children. And if Disney were to put something like that, and let's just say one kid, just one, managed to be allowed into one of these semi sort of kind of scary experiences, and their parents didn't realize it, and the kid came out crying and bawling, and of course they would throw a fit. They would go complain to guest relations about it. They would become a big hoopla, and people would be upset. And that's just the nature, unfortunately, of what entertainment in the United States, as far as Disney's concerned, has become. It's got to be accessible, everything to everybody. It seems like they don't want to carve out any of those niche audiences. That's why, Alien Encounter, I loved that attraction. It's gone, of course. It was too scary for many, which is why I loved it. But it was there. I'm surprised it was there in the first place, and it's gone now. So, I really don't see Disney doing anything like that as much as I, along with many others, would love to see it happen. So that will do it for Halloween for the moment. We'll get back to a little happier music now as we shift gears to a few other news stories before we circle back around to some Halloween fun once again. So let's jump back out to California now, where actually at Universal Studios Hollywood again, this is something that many are very, very excited to watch the progress of. The Wizarding World of Harry Potter is almost time to begin construction because the Gibson Amphitheater at the park at Universal Hollywood is or has been demolished. This is in order to make way, enough land, because they're very limited out there, to make enough land to build their version of the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, which is still several years away. Don't get too excited. It's not here anytime soon, but it is in progress, which is good to see. And speaking of things in progress, over at Disneyland out in California, Big Thunder Mountain, of course, has been down for much of 2013 for a major refurbishment, and today Disney announced I wouldn't call it a setback, but they pushed back the date a little bit of when it would be reopening. It was expected to reopen sometime this month in October, but now it seems it is not going to reopen until early 2014. They're calling it winter 2014, which had some people confused. They were thinking end of 2014, but what they really meant was maybe January, maybe February, sometime during this coming winter season, but not in 2013. So don't expect Big Thunder to reopen this year. And now in the world of merchandise, here's something that is very bizarre that Disney just announced will be coming to both Walt Disney World and Disneyland. They're called Disney Mouse Stashes. This is little cards with sticky fake mustaches, a peel and stick that you can purchase, or soon will be able to purchase. They're going to be available sometime this fall, which is basically now. One of them is a package of just a Walt Disney mustache. The other one, Geppetto, Sully, Cheshire Cat, Jafar, Captain Hook, and Hitchhiking Ghosts, which, some of those characters have mustaches to begin with. Some of them, they just kind of invented them. I find these baffling. They're both intriguing and interesting and entirely wrong all at the same time. I don't know what I think about people walking around with official Walt Disney mustaches. I mean, immediately what comes to mind is, of course, Saving Mr. Banks and Tom Hanks playing Walt Disney with a mustache, naturally. I wonder if when that movie comes out, the Disney Parks blog maybe will hold a meetup to go see the movie and give everybody the Walt Disney mustaches to wear. I could absolutely see that happening. But anyway, those will be hitting store shelves sometime in the near future. Let's see, out here at Walt Disney World, coming up next year is going to be a brand new daytime parade, the Festival of Fantasy Parade. I've talked about that here on the show, especially when it was announced. Well, this week, Disney revealed a little bit more artwork, showing off a couple more floats for this upcoming parade. Brave is going to have a float, and that float features, of course, Merida, but the whole float itself looks like a giant bagpipe, which is interesting use of a float. And then there's also going to be a Little Mermaid float with all the colorful under-the-sea elements that you would expect. Of course, Little Mermaid sitting on top in a clamshell with flounder swimming above her and lots of other fish, dancing and singing and doing things that fish do in The Little Mermaid. So those, or rather that whole parade is going to debut next year. It's worth noting, though, Disney also announced the end of the current daytime parade that has been around at Walt Disney World at the Magic Kingdom for years. January 1st through 4th officially are going to be the last days of the celebrated Dream Come True daytime parade. It's going to be around right now, and it's going to go away for a little while for Christmas, because during the couple of weeks around Christmas, they do the Christmas parade during the day, and then it'll go back to that parade for just a few days after New Year's, and then it will be gone forever. And there will, I guess, be no daytime parade in the meantime, because spring 2014 is when the new Festival of Fantasy Parade will be debuting. And speaking of parades, SeaWorld Orlando, or just SeaWorld in general, I suppose, announced this week that the 87th annual Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade is going to feature a Sea of Surprises float. That is actually the name of this SeaWorld float, featuring sculptures of sea turtles, penguins, fish, among the sea creatures, and a 32-foot-long float. So you can look for that in that famous New York parade. I have a feeling that particular float will not be making its way over to the Universal Orlando version of that parade, competing theme parks and all that. And now in the world of movies, those of you looking forward to Frozen coming out next month can get a new look at it with a new trailer that was released by Disney this week. Now, it's very interesting to look at these trailers that Disney is releasing for Frozen. They're doing their usual marketing, which is upsetting a lot of people, honestly. If you look at the trailers that have been released overseas, the foreign language trailers, they're really focusing on sort of the real guts of the movie, the real story, the story of Anna and Elsa, and that, is Elsa bad? Is she good? There's a feud going on between the sisters. There's a lot of, sort of action and adventure in the film. But then if you look at the United States version of the trailer, you get Olaf and Sven and, comedy and slapstick and, making it look like it's just a movie aimed at 3-year-olds, which is interesting. I mean, that's the same thing they did with Tangled. It's the same thing they tend to do with a lot of the movies. For some reason, they feel like, oh, it's animation, it's Disney, we have to target this at the absolute lowest common denominator, rather than really just making it look like a good movie, which I'm sure it will be. I mean, Tangled ended up being fantastic, despite the really bad trailers that they released, and I'm sure that will happen with Frozen Frozen as well. Everyone's going to go see the movie, love it, love the characters, and then take a look back at these silly slapstick trailers and be like, that's only a very small portion of the movie. So that's my take on the Frozen trailer, but if you want to go see it, head over to InsideTheMagic.net. Naturally, we have it there. And finally, there was actually some big news that I decided to save here to the end of the news segment. It involves executives, and it was just a couple of days ago that news broke that Stephen Clark, head of the Walt Disney Archives and of D23, since the inception of D23, has left Disney. He is no longer in either of those positions. I was told that by D23 that it was Stephen Clark's decision to leave, that there would be no changes to memberships, no changes to the D23 Expos, no changes to the archives other than his departure. They're sort of, taking his responsibilities and delegating them out to the existing staff. No direct replacement named for him at this time. Other sources, however, told me there was more to the story than just that. There was a lot going on behind the scenes, a lot of people rubbed the wrong way when it comes to Stephen Clark. So naturally, when any executive just all of a sudden leaves a company, it's unlikely that it was completely just his decision to say, I quit. There's always more to the story than that. I'm not sure we will ever get the true story, but regardless, the point is that Stephen Clark no longer with Disney or D23, so you won't be hearing his name anymore. I'm sure we'll get some new leadership for D23 in the near future, but for now, I'm told that everything is going according to plan. Nothing is happening to D23. It's not going away or anything, so you can continue to enjoy all of that entertainment even without Mr. Stephen Clark. And that'll do it for your news from around the world this week. And this week's tip comes in from Jennifer, who writes, I have a tip similar to the one from a couple of weeks ago about walking to Hollywood Studios from Epcot. If you want to get to the boardwalk area for dining or entertainment, you can take a bus from any of the parks or from downtown Disney to either the Yacht and Beach Club, they often share a bus, or to the Boardwalk Resort, and then walk to your desired location. This tip also works if you want quicker access to the International Gateway to World Showcase at the back of Epcot. We found that if you want to go to the boardwalk area, including Yacht and Beach as well as the Swan and Dolphin, take a bus from your resort to the studios, as long as they're open, and then take the friendship boat to the docks, or that dock outside of the studios entrance, to those resorts, or even to Epcot, to the World Showcase entrance at the International Gateway. Not only is this a great way to get around, but if you ride the friendship boats, they are very relaxing. So, Jennifer, great tip there. It's always nice to see those added various versions of transportation that you can take. It's not always about, hopping on a bus and letting that take you everywhere, or, depending on certain forms. There's a lot of different transportation options around Walt Disney World, and certainly, walking's one of them, but boats, another great way to get around. As you said, different, it's an attraction unto itself. You can just sit back, enjoy the boat ride while you're on the way. Everybody else, email your tips into tips@insidethemagic.net. And now, before we get into yet another segment that is sure to make you very hungry, much like last week, I do want to put in a quick few words about Capturing Magic. This is the pair of iPhone apps for Walt Disney World and for Disneyland that are really the ultimate tool for documenting and recording the magic of your Disney vacation. If you are a photographer or you just, planning on taking a lot of pictures, who doesn't when you're in the parks? Capturing Magic offers a helpful list of photo opportunities and memories that you're going to want to capture before, during, and after your trip. It's really the perfect way to ensure that you don't miss any of those magical moments, because while you're in the parks, after you've picked your desired photo ops, the app's going to say, hey, take a picture when you're near one of those locations, and then you take it, you mark off, hey, Sally and Bill are in this photo, and I used my Canon to take it, and then later you can easily organize it all and even email yourself a list of the pictures. So you can search for and download the Capturing Magic iPhone apps now in the iTunes App Store. And now it is time to talk a bit more about the Epcot Food and Wine Festival. Now, I haven't had a chance quite yet, even though it started this past weekend. I haven't had a chance to work my way around the World Showcase, so I'm not going to be sort of going, play-by-play, telling you all my favorites and all of that quite yet. I definitely plan on doing that sometime in the near future, but for now, I actually had some unique opportunities over the weekend to sort of a kickoff of the Food and Wine Festival, if you will. There was a special event that was held over at Epcot at night, as well as a daytime opportunity to sample a little bit more of the food and talk to some of the folks who are related to the Food and Wine Festival. Of course, you've heard from one of the planners and one of the chefs recently here on the show, but I've got even more folks to share conversations with here that will be particularly interesting and entertaining. And actually, before I get into that, I do want to mention that I did try one of the other new items for this year from the Scotland Pavilion, and that is the vegetable haggis. Now, this is not, traditional haggis in the traditional sense, which normally contains all kinds of, variety of animal organs and whatnot. This is a more sort of accessible version of haggis, where it's a vegetable haggis. It's a completely vegetarian dish. Tasted a lot like Thanksgiving stuffing to me, which I am a huge fan of stuffing, so I loved this. I will definitely get more of the vegetable haggis. I asked the chef what was in it, and he rattled off a list of like 10 different vegetables that I couldn't even possibly repeat for you here. It's just this, amalgamation of all this great stuff, and it really blends well together with all the seasoning. It's actually served with some rutabaga and potatoes, which are both equally as wonderful. So that's just worth mentioning here. Another sort of mini review of one of the dishes for this year. But in the process of going over to Epcot and sort of having a chance to sample a little of this and a little of that and then take part in the special event that I'll be talking about here in just a minute, I also had a chance to talk with one of this year's Food and Wine Festival special guests. She is Carla Hall. You might know her name from the Bravo show Top Chef, where she was a contestant, or you might know her name from her current role as host or one of the hosts of ABC's food talk show, The Chew. So we had a great conversation about her involvement with Disney and just sort of food in general. So I bring you none other than ABC's Carl. The Epcot Food and Wine Festival. Are you a big Disney fan? Have you come to the parks?
I'm a huge Disney fan. Well, I lived in Tampa, Florida, so I would come to Disney World, and then I've been to Disneyland.
Sure.
I have not been to Disneyland in Tokyo, although I was in Tokyo.
I haven't either.
But yes.
It's on the to-do list.
It's on the to-do list,
definitely.
Yes.
So, I watched you on Top Chef. It seems like a very hectic environment. Is it as crazy in real life as it does on TV?
I think it is as crazy. Top Chef is definitely as crazy, in real life as it is on television. The times are real.
Okay.
The challenges are real. There is nothing there's no sleight of hand or anything. It's all real.
It's an impressive feat, definitely.
Yeah, I think that the thing is, because we're sequestered, we're in a mindset where we are doing it. So to take us out of, like now, if you asked me to do a quick fire, I probably couldn't do it. But if I'm eating, breathing, sleeping Top Chef, and I'm in that mindset, it's so much easier.
So then you move on to a talk show style format. Is that a little easier on you? You get to be your vivacious self.
It was a hard transition going from Top Chef to being a host.
Had you ever done television hosting before?
No, I had never hosted before. I didn't have any media training, so it was really hard. Because on Top Chef, I'm on television doing what I do, and there happens to be a camera. But when you're hosting, you're asking questions, you're trying to draw information out of people, you're cooking in like 4 or 5 minutes, trying to make it seem really easy and effortless. And I found it to be really, really difficult.
And you're trying to talk over those other loudmouths on there too.
Yeah, we're all loudmouths. Yes.
So you come here to the Food and Wine Festival. Do you have favorites that you personally want to taste and enjoy?
I want to go to those countries where I haven't been, and I know they have at least over 100 different dishes that they're showcasing. Mm-hmm. I want to go. I've never been to Brazil, and I may have had influences from the food. I haven't been to Morocco. I haven't been to China. So I want to go to all these places and taste the dishes that I haven't tried. So I have a lot of eating to do. I think I have 100 dishes that I probably want to taste in, I have, less than 24 hours?
Good luck.
I know, right? Just pace myself.
So for those who want to, elevate themselves at home, want to be a better cook, what is your number one piece of advice?
I think try new foods. Well, basically, what I would say, and this plays into my next cookbook, find out the spices and herbs and the miscellaneous things that go into a particular cuisine. Mm-hmm. If you have a roasted chicken recipe, just change the spices. The technique is the same. Travel through spices and get to know another culture through the spices.
That's a good idea. Definitely, obviously, a lot of different flavors can come out with that.
Yes.
So you have a new book coming out?
Yes, it's called Cooking with Carla, Global Comfort Foods.
Okay.
And my current book is Cooking with Love, and it's mostly Southern foods and dishes from Top Chef and dishes from my catering days.
Oh, excellent. Yeah. When's the new book coming out?
It comes out, I do believe, early April of 2014. Okay.
There you have it, a bit with Carla Hall from The Chew and Top Chef, and fun person. If you watch her on TV, you can see that she's very much over the top, very big personality, and every bit the same in person. She, there's nothing fake about her on TV, certainly, which is always nice to see. So it was great talking to her. Later that evening, just a couple of days ago, there was a very special event. Again, like I said, sort of the kickoff to the Epcot Food and Wine Festival this year. The event was called Scotland Land of Food and Drink. It was a nighttime event held in the World Showplace, the former Millennium Village area of the World Showcase there at Epcot, and it was similar sort of setup as the Party for the Senses. If anyone out there has been to that, with a lot of tables and stations where you can go and you get drinks, you get food, you get a little bit of entertainment throughout the night, and I must say I had a wonderful time. It was a 3-hour event that evening, except unlike the Party for the Senses, which has a lot of different flavors from around the Food and Wine Festival, this particular event was filled with flavors from Scotland, naturally, hence the name. Scotland, Land of Food and Drink. It was, Scotland has had a big partnership with Disney recently. Of course, the movie Brave had a big back and forth between Scotland and set in Scotland, and they worked, visited Scotland, worked with them, and etc. And then, of course, now Scotland has a booth at the Food and Wine Festival as well. So that partnership continues, and they're really Scotland is really eager to be working with Disney. In fact, there at that special event was Visit Scotland, is their tourism bureau. That's the name of it for the actual country of Scotland. So Visit Scotland's chairman, Michael Cantley, was there at the special event. I had a chance to ask him a few questions about what he thought, of us Americans being over here and the food and whatnot. So here's what Visit Scotland chairman Michael Cantley had to say.
Makes Scottish food Scottish?
Well, do you know what? I know this is a daft thing to say, Scotland, because we live in a very unique climate. Because of the Atlantic in particular, which means that we have this wonderful seafood, but we have this temperate climate which is great for growing fruit and veg, for bringing up cattle, beef, for wild venison roaming the hills. You put all that together and combine that with whiskey, which of course every whiskey is entirely unique to the burn they take the whiskey out of, the stream. It's, from a food and drink perspective, it's an entirely unique perspective.
Yeah. So what do you think about serving us Americans vegetarian haggis?
Well, if you want the real stuff, you just got to come over to see it. As it happens, the vegetable haggis is very popular.
I had it today. It was excellent.
It was very good. Yeah, it is.
But the real haggis, one of the chefs, I've just been convincing the story, of course, that a haggis is a little animal, and its legs on one side are shorter than the other because it runs around the hillside. But unfortunately, they don't last too long because they're coming. And she was completely taken in. So there we are. Oh, dear.
Those pesky haggis.
That's why I eat the veggie.
Yeah. So there we are.
Of course, haggis itself is not a little animal with two legs shorter than the other. Pretty amusing story there. But just a few words there from a representative from Scotland about the cuisine that they've been bringing over to share with us Americans over here. And I did, at this special event, have a chance to try quite a lot of food from Scotland, including haggis. It was actually lamb and beef liver haggis. Now, unfortunately, in the United States, a lot of what goes into a real haggis over in Scotland is not even allowed from the FDA. But you know what? This lamb and beef liver haggis was so good, I had a second helping. It was actually really good. So I was pleasantly surprised about that. But that certainly wasn't it. I had quite a lot of Scottish cuisine throughout the evening, including kale and neeps and teddies, and some chicken and leg of lamb, and scones, and this really excellent, delicious cauliflower and Scottish cheese soup. If you're a fan of the Canadian cheddar soup, this was even better than that, honestly. What else? I have some beef with Scotch whiskey sauce. Nothing sounds more Scottish than that. Some potato salad, some here's some more of these crazy Scottish words. Some cockaliki and some rumbledy thumps. I don't know what that is either, but I had it, and it was honestly, everything was good. These nighttime events as part of the Food and Wine Festival, and this is kind of the point here, whether it's a one-time Scottish event like this was, or the Party for the Senses, or any of these other events, they really elevate the cooking and the availability, and even the education when it comes to special drinks. Really elevate it to another extreme. You can certainly make your way around the small plates of food around the world to showcase food and wine, which I love. That's great. But then you go to these special events, and they're even better. They're prepared with even more technique. They're served in larger portions, and of course, you can have as much as you want. So they're a little pricey. Like this particular event was $95 a head. I will say Disney provided access for me, but the fact that I got it free does not in any way influence what I'm talking about here, because the food was simply delicious. If it wasn't, I would tell you. In fact, there were a couple of things I didn't really like. The kale, not really a big fan of that. Maybe I just don't like kale. I don't know. But almost everything else, well, the chicken was a little bit ordinary, and then the beef was, just kind of your standard cut of beef. It was all very good, but really the real special sort of Scottish dish is what I was most interested in trying. Now, throughout the evening, in addition to some food, there was also some great entertainment set up throughout the 3 hours that I was there. A band came out and played some very, very Scottish music on the bagpipes. In fact, they were joined by some Scottish-style dancers as well. And there was this wonderful singing act. Her name is Rachel Sermani. She's a Scottish singer. She was joined by musician Jennifer Austin. They performed several songs throughout the evening, but easily the highlight was the surprise appearance by, of course, Merida, but also her mom, Queen Eleanor. This was the very first time that Queen Eleanor has made an appearance for meet and greets. Of course, she previously was seen at the coronation of Merida over at the Magic Kingdom, and that was the very first time she'd ever been seen as a character in the Disney theme parks, and now she was back for a second appearance, this time actually taking pictures with guests and even signing autographs as well. So, of course, I didn't come prepared in the slightest for that, but I did manage to find a piece of paper that was lying around to win a trip to Scotland and had her sign that, so I have a very rare autograph of Queen Eleanor, Merida's mom. So that was a nice treat. You can actually head over to our YouTube channel to check out some video of Merida and Queen Eleanor together. I chatted with them a little bit, naturally. Excuse me, had a little something in my throat there, but I chatted with them and had an opportunity to just have some good fun on this this evening to kick off the Food and Wine Festival. As I said, coming up in the near future, I will definitely be going around the World Showcase and eating my way, as I do every year, and reporting back with plenty of yummy tales of the Epcot Food and Wine Festival this year. So there it is, a little report from a special Scottish event at Epcot. And with that, it is time to get right back into some spooky stuff. Again, I apologize for coughing a minute ago. I am still sort of getting over this cold. Far too little sleep and far too much fun. But anyway, jumping into this now, moving on to our next bit of Halloween excitement. Last week I talked about Universal Orlando's Halloween Horror Nights, of course, and that means this week it's time to talk about none other than Howl-O-Scream Howl-O-Scream over at Busch Gardens Tampa, the other theme park event that I absolutely 100% would not miss year after year. And this year, I'm not going into quite as much detail of everything at Howl-O-Scream like I did at Horror Nights because Universal completely reinvents the event every single year. Everything is totally new. Howl-O-Scream recycles a lot of stuff, but they also introduce plenty of new things. So I'm just going to focus on the new things this year because you've heard about the other experiences in the past. Overall, I feel like this was an average year for Howl-O-Scream. Some exceptionally good. In fact, some of the best things I've ever seen at Howl-O-Scream, and then some, not so good. So if you want to read about the not so good, head over to InsideTheMagic.net. But for now, the good stuff includes walking into the gate because immediately you see the 13. Now, the 13 are sort of the 13 icons, if you will, that Busch Gardens created for this year. 13 different characters that materialize for 2013, naturally, once a century, as they're saying. These 13 are a wide variety of creatures that are very, very entertaining immediately as soon as you step into the park. These 13 are the Possessed, who is this she's completely possessed. She's this girl who barks at you and crawls on her hands backwards and, just does all these crazy possessed maneuvers. Very entertaining, but kind of creepy, which is the point. Then there's the Torturer, which is this big burly guy dressed in black with all kinds of metal pokey things coming out of a mask over his face. Again, kind of creepy. You don't want to get too close to him. We also have the Hunter. Now, if you watch The Walking Dead, you know the character of Daryl. Well, you kind of know the Hunter. Clearly modeled after that character, though unofficially, I'm sure. But, that's essentially who the Hunter is. Not as creepy, but entertaining to watch. The Butcher's kind of your standard butcher, big guy with a beard who's got a lot of blood all over him on his apron and whatnot, with a meat cleaver, and you want to steer clear of him, too. The Banshee walks around the evening screaming. Constantly, all the time. Don't want to hear that right in your ear. It's not a pleasant experience. I mean, you hear the screams of people who are getting scared. This is a different kind of scream. This is the kind of scream where you go, wow, what is that ringing in my ear? So that's the Banshee. Also in the 13 is the Voodoo Queen, and I'll talk more about her in just a little bit because she has her own haunted house this year. Then there's the Surgeon, and she's an interesting character. She's not particularly scary, but she's very beautiful, yet she hides behind a surgical mask. She's got, sort of these sultry eyes that draw you in, and then she's got this syringe filled with blood that you don't want to have anything to do with. The Demon is there, certainly one of the more unique of the 13, and he's all black, like dark pitch black with this furry collar and these big horns hanging out, and he's just smiling at you and generally looking creepy as well. The Zombie, not a great character so much, kind of your generic, uninteresting zombie-type character. And then there's the Cannibal, who walks around with a knife, eagerly looking at you, trying to make a meal of you, but, can't quite do that, so he's kind of just licking his knife all night long. And the Psychopath, definitely one of the more interesting characters, has this bizarre face contraption that forces his mouth open, and he's just kind of staring blankly and blinking and drooling, and it's, just stay away from him, too. And then there's the Hangman, a shirtless, big, guy, hairy chest and a executioner mask over his head and walking around with a noose all night long, and you certainly don't want to end up with that around your neck. And then there's the Clown. Clowns, creepy. I don't think I need to say anything more about that. So those are the 13, and they are wildly entertaining at the front of the park. And a few, mixed into the haunted house experiences as well as another one of the scare zones. But they, I could spend all night just sitting and watching. In fact, I spent quite a long time just in the front of the park shooting video and taking pictures and really enjoying this high-energy zone. Very, very entertaining, and a lot of scares, too. People coming right in the park, just scream after scream after scream, which is wonderful. That is what a Halloween event should be all about. And there are two other scare zones at Howl-O-Scream this year. One of them is called Pain Lane, and this is a particularly depraved zone. It's got two of those of the 13 that I just mentioned. There's the Torturer and the Hangman are in there, and so you combine those, and you can imagine what's going on in here. With a name like Pain Lane, it's all about sort of the sadistic side of torture and pain, and sort of have victims that are running around and enacting these sequences of torture, and it's not an area that everybody would necessarily feel comfortable spending a lot of time in. a good scare zone. Not very big, but entertaining and fun to watch if you're, into that sort of thing. The other scare zone for this year is called Harvester's Haunt. Yes, there's only one other scare zone, unfortunately, leaving much of the park dark. But Harvester's Haunt is full of scarecrows hanging around, but naturally, since it's a Halloween event, those scarecrows tend to come alive and jump down off of their posts and, scare people instead of scaring crows. There's also a fun little moment in there with two people dressed just like the American Gothic painting, but naturally they come alive as well and try to scare people. So not as great of a scare zone, but, still mildly entertaining. And that's it for the streets. Honestly, the 13 probably more entertaining than the Walking Dead stuff at Halloween Horror Nights, just because it is such a wide variety. This is what I love about going to Halloween events, is seeing all these crazy characters that I've never seen before, or sort of new takes on characters I've seen before, watching them all interact and scare people and just have a good time. And that's my personal favorite part about Halloween events in general. However, the best part about Howl-O-Scream this year is easily one of the best things I've ever seen, if not the best thing I've ever seen at Howl-O-Scream, and that is the new haunted house called Death Water Bayou. As the name suggests, it is set in the bayou of New Orleans, Louisiana. It's this old shack that you walk up to, very dark, sort of creepy, sets the ambience of walking up to the bayou very well, Blue Bayou style, but creepier. Of course, it has some backwoods inhabitants lurking outside, and then once you get inside, it's time to have your encounter with the Voodoo Queen and sort of her henchman. She greets you with a seance, moves you through to a creepy witch doctor of sorts, very much reminds me of, Dr. Facilier type character, and then from there, all the voodoo takes over, and it is just a wonderful experience, very New Orleans. They really hit all the right notes to make you feel like you're walking through the bayou and the New Orleans style funeral, which is very jazzy, and then the streets of New Orleans, and lots of really inventive and unique elements and visual pieces of all of it together. It's just a fantastic experience. I cannot recommend this haunted house enough. Even better than some of the ones at Halloween Horror Nights this year. Really one of my favorite experiences this year. If you want to see some of about half this house, check out the Scream Cam video over on our YouTube channel and on InsideTheMagic.net. I unfortunately didn't have a chance to go out there for the Scream Cam this year, but I sent Jeremiah Good as our victim this year. You may know him from Window to the Magic. So if you want to see him walking through Death Water Bayou, or at least half of it, definitely go check that out. So definitely that was easily my favorite part of Howl-O-Scream this year. Also worth noting, the other new haunted house for the year is called The Basement. Unfortunately, I can't say as many nice things at all about The Basement. It's kind of your typical Howl-O-Scream experience. A lot of really, bizarre sort of bloody scenes that don't mean a whole lot. It's set in this meat factory, and, of course, in Howl-O-Scream fashion, the meat factory is, they're chopping up, people or something. I didn't really quite get the gist of what was going on, and there's a lot of people just yelling incoherent things at you and banging things, and not a big fan of The Basement, unfortunately. And the fact that it's a new haunted house, it'll probably stick around for a while, for several years, which, not really looking forward to that too much. It's actually set in the former location of the Alone haunted house. It actually sort of follows very similarly the same path with different elements and different show scenes. So if you never got a chance to see Alone, now you can see The Basement and get an idea of what kind of sort of that was like. And speaking of Alone, and the Alone house where you walk through by yourself or with a small group is not available this year at Howl-O-Scream. Instead, there is The Experiment. Now, I will do just about anything at a Halloween event. I'm up for all kinds of scares, and I'm not easily scared, and I want to, sort of take it to the next extreme. However, The Experiment I actually passed on. One, it's $50. I didn't think the description of this experience worked for a $50 price tag to me. It was an experiment in different kinds of fears, and the examples they gave were bugs and snakes, and that's not my idea of Halloween or anything. That sounds like Fear Factor to me. That's not really my thing. But of course, I wanted to find out what the experiment was all about, so I talked to a few people on their way out of it, and several people have chimed in over on our website on my full review of Howl-O-Scream as well. Some had a lot of fun doing it, others said it was just okay. Some have said it was absolutely worth the price, others have said it's not so much worth the price. It really depends on your taste, and I think those who are looking for sort of a new take on Halloween experience, something different that you want to try, you're going to like it. But if you're looking for just a really scary haunted type experience, that's not what the experiment is all about. So, maybe next year I'll give it a shot, because I have heard, quite a few people recommended it, said it was clever and different and unique. But this year I just simply did not take part in that. Final new experience for Howl-O-Scream this year is an update to the classic show Fiends that has been a staple of Howl-O-Scream for many, many years. Of course, in addition to Dr. Freakenstein, the nurses are part of the show once again this year. But this year, there's actually a story to the show. It's set in Freakenstein University or something like that, where all the characters are introduced as different professors for different classes, and they weave in a lot of pop culture references. And it's updated with contemporary music and better dancing. And a lot of the characters are the same, but it's just sort of a new version of the show that is vastly improved. The old one was getting, rather old and tired, and it's good to see this show getting the much-needed overhaul, still retaining a lot of the most entertaining elements while becoming a much, much more entertaining show. You can actually catch video of that whole show over on our YouTube channel as well. Finally, for Howl-O-Scream, I was very happy to see some great food options this year, because normally the food at Busch Gardens is less than stellar. The Taco Bus food truck is there, which is famous in Tampa. It's a fantastic amount of sort of flavors of food. They actually have a sort of brick-and-mortar location. Literally, they serve out of a bus, but it's great Mexican food. So they park their food truck at Howl-O-Scream this year every single night, and the food is much, much better than anything else in the park. Unfortunately, the food out of the food truck is not quite as good as the actual Taco Bus restaurant, but again, compared to everything else in the theme park, it's gourmet cuisine. So if you're going to Howl-O-Scream, I would definitely recommend that is where you want to eat. And so that'll do it for sort of the new things for Howl-O-Scream this year. If you want a complete review of everything Howl-O-Scream, along with lots of video from all the scare zones, the Fiends show, as well as I think we took over 400 photos throughout the evening, head over to InsideTheMagic.net for the sort of scare-by-scare report on the whole experience.
Hi, Ricky.
Hi, Ricky.
Hey, Ricky.
Hi, Ricky.
Hi, Ricky.
Hey, Ricky. Ricky, this is amazing.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls.
Inside the Magic listener feedback.
We'll stick with the spooky music here. I think this will be a continuing trend throughout the month of October. Jumping into emails here. First up are a couple of emails responding to last week's news, where I was talking about Disney's changes to the disability policies and the guest assistance card and all of that. Scott writes in and says, being a person in a wheelchair and going to Disney for almost 40 years, I've been increasingly frustrated, not in Disney per se, but in the people abusing the system more and more. Watching groups trade off who's in the wheelchair at a particular ride is the worst. There will always be people to take advantage of the situation, part of our welfare mentality that we're creating, but these people are making the disabled lines longer than the traditional line. Space Mountain to Disneyland, the disabled line is often longer than the standby line. I roll by and laugh at all the frauds who think they're cutting lines but end up waiting longer. When I want to ride, it's not so funny. The new system seems like a similar system that they have at Knott's Berry Farm. You get a card, take it to the ride operator, they write down a time that you can come back based on the line length, and then you come back. Similar to FastPass, though, you can only get one ride at a time, and you can't get a new ride time until the previous ride time has expired. Continuing, Evan writes in and says, when I was at Disneyland this past August, they began testing the new disability card. My dad had trouble standing for any lengthy periods of time, so we were given one of these cards and was told it was a new service that they were providing for handicapped guests. The whole system worked very well for the most part, although it was only done correctly on the larger attractions like Radiator Springs Racers and Space Mountain. Some of the smaller attractions like Snow White's Scary Adventures and Alice in Wonderland and rides similar to that didn't quite know how to use it. They would just let us right on the ride after a couple of minutes of waiting. From what I saw, however, it is a much improved system when it was worked correctly and the cast members knew what to do, and I think it will solve the problem of selling disability passes as they stamp the card with how many people are in your party. Overall, I enjoyed this accommodation and also made sure that my dad was able to, and as they also made sure that my dad was able to do the stairs on rides like Splash Mountain. I think it is a great solution. Evan and Scott, thanks for your input on the matter. It seems like other than those who are sort of overreacting to misleading headlines that are out there, most people agree that sort of this new equal version of disability assistance is really a great way to go. The guest assistance card often provided preferred access, if you will, to a lot of the attractions, above and beyond what your average guest would be getting. And of course, taking that away, that's, unfortunate now, but it is definitely, seems to me, and seems to those of you who agree as well, that it's providing sort of an equal system for everybody now, which is exactly what it should be. I don't think anybody should have a better or worse time for the same thing. Just, give an opportunity for those who can't access it because of any kind of a disability, give them an equal option, and I think that is what this is. Next up, an email from K, who writes just the letter K, who writes, he must be from Men in Black or something. I heard on a recent podcast that Disney should come up with something like The Simpsons have for an app. They kind of do. Disney put out an app not long ago that deals with the Muppets, where you have to collect different characters. The name of the app is called My Muppet Show, and it's been on the market for about a month now. I know that the Disney theme park and characters would be nice, but up until that happens, this game will have to do. I haven't heard of that app, but I will have to go check out My Muppet Show. It sounds like a fun little app to play with. Next email comes in from Ryan, who writes, I just listened to the show that contained the Unleash the Villains content, and I have a bit of an insight as to what happened that night. Disney only projected about 18,000 people to attend the event. They were not expecting the massive number of people that ended up attending, which I cannot fathom why, considering how popular the villains are. Because of that fact, that they only projected 18,000 people, they staffed and stocked accordingly, so a number of cast members did leave at their normally scheduled times, and because of this and the fact that they literally ran out of food in the park, which is why they stopped serving food around 11. I would not be surprised if this event happens again, another Friday the 13th perhaps, but if it does happen again, it needs to be run exactly like Star Wars weekends. Ryan, thanks for that additional insight. It doesn't surprise me that Disney maybe misestimated who was going to be coming, despite the fact that they were promoting it the entire year since they announced limited time magic, and yes, villains are very popular. So clearly, now they know what to expect when they roll out a villains event, and I'm sure the gears are turning somewhere saying, hey, we sold out a park, reached capacity as a result of the villains. What can we do with them next? Or at least I hope that's what they're saying. Next up is an email from Russ, who writes, listening to your podcast show 442, and the reader emails, and Becky asked about the age of the beast. Well, since the flower will bloom until his 21st birthday, I would say he's 20, with a birthday coming up real soon, since the flower stops blooming around the time he finishes his battle with Gaston. Also, the quote, 10 years we've been rusting would make him 10 when the old lady showed up with the rose. Shouldn't we be asking how he became such a ladies' man at age 10 when the old lady turned into a beautiful enchantress? Since the movie was released in November 1991, that would make his current age 42 with a birthday coming up. Russ, interesting evaluation of that question. Sounds pretty legit to me, and it's an interesting question you pose there as well. Here's diving back a little further into the virtual email bag here. Ed, from a few weeks ago, writes, just listen to your review of Disney Infinity, and I just wanted to say the Wii U version is fantastic. Also, you said you were disappointed with the voice acting, but I had the opposite reaction, as many of the lead and peripheral original cast members had returned for the game, in particular Armie Hammer as the Lone Ranger, Craig T. Nelson as Mr. Incredible, Larry the Cable Guy as Mater, Wallace Shawn as Wreck, John Ratzenberger as Mac, and Kevin McNally as Gibbs. There are a few others that sound dead on, but can't recall all from the credits. Ed, good to know that all of those supplied their original voices. I guess I was referring to sort of the A-lister celebrities, and I guess you could argue that Armie Hammer is one since he was the title role. The Lone Ranger, of course, the Lone Ranger didn't do very well, so who knows? But so a lot of the big names didn't supply their voices. It was just the kind of big names that seem to have done so. Couple of more emails here. Bridget in California wrote in and sent me a link to a video as well as a download for a Disneyland campaign made for the game Left 4 Dead 2. According to Brittany, it took about 3 years to make from the for the person who made it, and as she says, it's awesome. Now, I haven't played. I think I played the original Left 4 Dead. I haven't played Left 4 Dead 2, but I did check out this video, and it is wildly impressive. I definitely go online, go on YouTube, search for Disneyland Left 4 Dead. It's amazing the amount of detail that has been put in this, and of course, you run around and shoot zombies and stuff at Disneyland, which is an added bonus. So, Bridget, thanks for that. Heads up. Ben writes in on another video game-related email and said, I just recently found something very cool I wanted to share. There is a server for the game Minecraft that has a full recreation of Walt Disney World. I walked through the Magic Kingdom, Ticket and Transportation Center, the Contemporary. The recreations are very accurate, and it appears they have the other parks and resorts as well. For someone who can't visit that often, this is a great way to get away. The server address is mcdisney.us. Ben, thanks very much for that. I'm sure all the Minecraft fans out there will enjoy checking that out. I actually have never played Minecraft either, so, one of those things I just simply, it sounds like something I would like to get into, especially, I enjoyed Disney Infinity Toy Box, and I'm sure Minecraft is even more involved than that. Something I probably would have played around with a lot years ago, but now I don't have any time to do anything like that anymore. I'm running around to theme parks all the time. Not that I'm complaining. Definitely enjoy it, but, video games tend to be pushed aside lately. Anyway, so Ben, thanks very much for that email. And one more email here before wrapping up this week's show. This one comes in from John, who writes, one of the worst home DIY projects is removing old paint from woodwork before repainting. Between scraping, sanding, chemistry, or heat, no technique seems to do the job easy, clean, or fast. The Magic Kingdom's Main Street must have been repainted many times since 1971. In 2040, Disney must remove old paint periodically, otherwise it would be an inch thick right now, or by now. How do they do it? Some magical technique, or just a lot of people with sanding away? John, that's a really interesting question. I know they do paint over a lot. I can't say that they, sand the buildings down every single time, but at some point, you're right, the paint must get pretty thick, no matter how many times they, paint and repaint and repaint. But I have no idea. I wonder if there's any painters out there who have worked at the Disney parks would be able to chime in. And, when they put up that scaffolding, the photorealistic scaffolding, what goes on behind the scenes there? How does Disney go about sprucing up their facades? That is a great question that hopefully somebody will be able to answer. And that is it for your listener feedback this week.
There's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow.
And that's where I'm going to wrap up show 443 of the show. Hopefully you enjoyed even more Food and Wine Festival talk. A little bit of a different spin than usual of me just sort of blabbing on and on about the food because, well, that's still to come as soon as I have a chance to find my way around the World Showcase. Really looking forward to that. But the Scotland event Saturday night was a whole lot of fun. Seemed like everybody who was there had a really great time. Disney sure knows how to put on events like that. And then, of course, Howl-O-Scream, Busch Gardens, pretty good year. A lot of really, really excellent things to really balance out with the not so excellent. So if you want the full review of that, again, with lots of video and photos, head over to InsideTheMagic.net, along with, if you see the banner there for Halloween, just click on that on the website and you'll get everything Halloween related. I've just scratching the surface there with the events that I've covered so far, ones that I've covered personally here in Central Florida, as well as all the reporters that I've sent out throughout the country to cover other interesting events, particularly unique events that are certainly getting a lot of attention for that very fact that they're very unique. My favorite time of the year, and I love hearing about it and really sharing all of that with everybody. I'm going to be heading back out to California in a couple of weeks to experience something like 7 or 8, or I don't know, I lost count, different haunted attractions out there, big and small. So I'll definitely be coming back and reporting about all of that. Not necessarily all of it here on the podcast, but also certainly over on the website and YouTube and all that good stuff. So for those of you who are Halloween fans like me, you can have all of that to look forward to. I do want to thank Magical Travel for sponsoring this week's episode of Inside the Magic. You can find out more about their services by visiting magicaltravel.com. Also, don't forget to check out the Capturing Magic iPhone apps. Search for that on the iTunes App Store in order to be able to plan your magical moment capturing and photo taking and all of that, all the better. And between episodes of this show, once again, definitely visit us over on InsideTheMagic.net. We crossed some milestones recently. Our Facebook page just hit 30,000 followers. We're about to reach 30,000. Well, I guess Facebook likes 30,000, whatever. We're about to reach 30,000 followers on Twitter and 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. Great milestone there. So thanks to everybody who's been tuning in for everything, and please continue to do so. So thanks for listening, for watching each and every week, and have a magical week. Bye.
Just a dream away.